Hello, everyone. Once again, live from Facebook, TikTok. Um, I'm live all over the place. I'm excited to be here. This is what I enjoy. I enjoy speaking about politics, speaking about what's happening in the world, speaking about all these issues right here from my own backyard, from my own home. I enjoy speaking about these topics because if I don't do it, who's gonna do it, right? Obviously, everyone is gonna do it, right? Everyone has a criticism, has an attack on everything that people do, right? People always have an opinion on every topic and every area of everyone's life, right? People always have an opinion. That's just the reality of life, right? Um, and today I'll be speaking about so many issues, right? I'll be speaking about so many issues, right? Um, Let me share it to X, um, to right. I'm gonna share it to Twitter. Oh, sorry, X. I'm gonna share it on Facebook. Um, right. Give me 1 second. So let's jump right into it. Let's jump right into it. The This is the worst predicament the United States could be in, right? Thanks
Predicament
for
to
joining me.
China. The Japanese government has stated that they have 254 days of oil reserves. If the Strait of Hormuz is closed for an extended period due to the ongoing war, it will be a very serious problem for Japan's economy. Also, the Japanese government, or at least not the fucking pliant leadership in Japan that are America dick riders and Israel dick riders, but the rest of the Japanese government has been losing their fucking minds because America did not even give them a prior notice that they were striking Tehran. And there are Japanese nationals in Tehran. So we're not even abiding by previous long-standing security arrangements that we have with some of our most consequential fucking allies. And not only that, if Iran
There's a
ends up
lot of
successfully
people,
closing off the Strait of Hormuz, they destroy all of Japanese energy.
but guess what? There's a lot of Americans that are stranded in many states, in many countries, right? In the Middle East. Many Americans stranded. They didn't even know that this was going to happen. There was no preparation with the embassies. The embassies weren't prepared for this happening. It was just like a last minute thing that they didn't even plan for this. They didn't plan for this to be a across the board um, thing. I don't understand. How can you not plan for this, right? How can you not plan for this ahead of time, right? So I'm just posting it in all the websites. Let's keep his listening to what Hassan Piker has to say, right?
But hey, am Israel high, right? Let's go, baby. Fucking nuclear warfare. Fuck it. Destroy the planet for Israel. Let's go. By the way, if the Strait of Hormuz closes, Japan is cooked. They're even in a worse predicament than China.
So the Strait of Hormuz is very important for the Middle East. It's not only important for it's important for China too. It's important for Japan. So a lot of the countries are upset that they weren't notified about the war even taking place. Right? A lot of the countries are upset that they weren't not notified about what was happening, right? No one told them. Like, the United States did not give a warning. The United States did not prepare them for the one of the biggest wars that we've seen in years, right? No one told them that this was happening. And now the United States is requesting for the the for the United States to use the airspace, to use the bases. And what did Donald Trump say? He doesn't have to ask anyone or any country to use their airspace. If the United States has a base, a military base in that country, they're gonna use it, and they're gonna go around the airspace. They don't care how it affects or impacts um, any European country, and they were going back and forth, right? They pretty much was like between Japan hasn't said nothing publicly that I know about, but Spain was going back and forth. UK, Germany were pretty much going back and forth with the United States, um, saying that they need permission in order to use the airspace, and they need permission in order to refuel their planes, or and the United States is claiming that they don't need any type of permission, right? And so these regional economies are being impacted greatly, and no one asked them if they really wanted to participate in this. This is why usually we inform the allies when we're going to strike, um, or conduct strikes, because we want them to know, therefore um, they could participate, or they could open up their airspace, therefore the airports know, therefore the air controllers know, therefore they could avoid any type of conflict, or any type of unforeseen injuries, right? And so more and more countries are being sucked into the whole war, right? More countries are being sucked into the war, even countries that didn't think that they should um, be involved, right? So this is a big misunderstanding. Listen to this clip.
Actually, Palestinians are not immigrants in Gaza. They are indigenous people to the land.
Didn't Israel just give Gaza the land like a few decades ago?
No.
I'm pretty sure Israel used to have that land.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong. They
1900s.
withdrew
Yes,
from 2005 from the land, but control
Yeah,
the
and they
air.
gave it to them in 2005.
No, they don't give it to them. They control the air, the sea space, the borders, the population registry. They controlled what went in and out. It was a prison, an open air prison. That's not giving them
Don't they have
freedom.
a border with Egypt and then the Mediterranean
Yes,
Sea?
and the
So how's that
Israelis
a
and
prison?
Israelis and Egyptians work together because Donald Trump and Joe
Really?
Biden
The
and
Egyptians
Barack
that are
Obama.
Muslim?
Yes, they're funded by the United States. Did you know that Muslim countries do bad things too?
Actually,
Palestinians are not immigrants in Gaza. They are indigenous people to the land.
Didn't Israel just give Gaza the land like a few decades ago?
No.
So the ignorance of people, they don't really understand history, right?
I believe that there
Let's
were
listen
people who were
to
negotiating,
Hassan
thinking they
Piker
really were going to solve the
and
nuclear issue.
Rokan.
But the Omanis who were mediating said that they were close to a deal, that they were making progress. And yet Donald Trump, someone got in his ear about a regime change, and he's gone at it from a regime change. As is evidence, if you believe
regime change, the same regime change that he promised would not happen, right? Right? He said there was not going to be any regime change happening under his watch. We don't engage in regime change as a country. We haven't benefited from it. We haven't had good results from regime change, and the amount of money it costs to try to do regime change, right? Because once we're destroying all these buildings and all these areas, what we just walk away. We don't have to build it up. We don't have to build the country back up, or we just walk away and act like nothing happened, right? So there has to be some type of regime change. To it.
Believe the reporting about the Ayatollah that there's allegations and evidence that he made the first strike may have been on one of the first strikes would have been on the Ayatollah. So obviously their mission was a regime change and not just the nuclear deal. I supported the JCPOA. The Omanis were saying that the United States could have gotten a better deal than even the JCPOA. We could have gotten a deal on on dismantling the ballistics and dismantling any and giving up any enriched uranium and storage. But we chose not to do it. And I, at this point, believe Donald Trump is engaged in a regime change war. I believe that there were people who were negotiating, thinking they really were going to solve the nuclear issue. But the Omanis who were mediating said that they were close to a deal, that they were making progress. And yet Donald Trump, someone got in his ear about a regime change, and he's gone at it from a regime change.
Does it sound like
evidence, if you believe the reporting about the Ayatollah?
Does it sound like the Iraq War? Like we said that we're going to be there for only for a few days. We're going to topple the regime that was there, topple the leadership, and then we're just going to walk away, and they were going to be able to run their own country and be able to take care of everything else, right? But it hasn't happened like that in human history. So why are we convinced that this time around it's going to work like this, right? Why do people think that this time around that it's going to actually work the way we want it to work, right? It has never worked that way. It never will work that way. So now all of a sudden things are going to change. Very doubtful, right? Very doubtful, right? Regime change is messy and expensive.
New video from Tel Aviv shows two CNN journalists being detained by Israeli police after trying to cover the aftermath of Iranian missile strikes. Take a look at this.
Okay. Okay. You can't take it. Okay. Take down. Şu anda Give me your telephone, please. Savunma Bakanlığı telefonumuzu. No. Evet. Now.
As you could see, these two members of CNN Turk's news team were detained live on air, forcing them to pause their broadcast. CNN Turk is a regional affiliate of CNN, and according to an update they posted, the two staffers were subsequently arrested and their cell phones confiscated. Here's what the Times of Israel is saying happened. When the officers ordered the journalists to identify themselves, the reporters presented expired press ID cards and were then detained. After being arrested, one of these individuals contacted the media TV group that licenses the brand using a phone that he obtained with permission. He said they were in good health, but did confirm their devices had been taken away and that they were being held in custody. I'm not so sure if I believe their press ID cards were actually expired, especially given Israel's history with journalists, being the top unaliver of them for several consecutive years. In my view, this seems like a major attack on the freedom of press. New video.
So they pretty much didn't want the recording of missiles actually hitting Israeli buildings because it's happening. Both sides are just hitting each other. Hezbollah's involved now. They try to shoot drones at Turkey. The American embassy in Saudi Arabia was attacked and then had to be evacuated. So what do you think, people? Do you agree with his assessment? Do you agree with his assessment about they don't want the narrative to be out there? This is another video, another example on when they wanted to change the narrative.
Patrol unit that was advancing up the street, saying and scattering the protesters at that point for people to clear the area. And so we walked away. I'm sorry?
This is a Minnesota.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Similar scenario, right? They didn't want people to know or see what was happening. So they started arresting journalists, blocking them, letting them know you can't record. You're not allowed to record, and that's it.
That was advancing up the
Right?
street, saying
So the same thing happening when the government doesn't want people to see anything that's happening, right?
Kameraman arkadaşım Ali Kahraman
This is the
bana
video
bu
again.
bilgiyi hemen hazırladı baktığımızda.
CNN
Şimdi burada
reporter
çok
being
sayıda
arrested in Israel for
okay.
recording buildings.
You can
For recording buildings
okay. Şu anda
that were
Savunma Bakanlığı
bombed.
telefonumuzu
So they're really trying to control the
alıyor.
narrative.
Evet şu anda
They don't want people to see
indiriyoruz. Evet, okey.
anything that's
Çıkıyor
happening,
kartı.
right?
Stop. Okay.
They don't want anyone to see what's happening in right? They don't want people to know or see that it's happening, right? So, and it's just interesting the way things work, right? Every once in a while, you get an instant karma, right? You get instant karma and you get some type of results, right? I'll show you some instant karma. Today, big news, Chrissy Noem was fired by Donald Trump. People are saying she was fired, but she was reassigned, right? She was reassigned to a special security detail in a position that was just created for her. And she's stepping down effective March 31st.
Then I heard about an airborne episode of entitlement, arrogance, and contempt that I could hardly believe.
She had a meltdown in front of Congress. She was being questioned by Congress, and this is the second time that she has had like a meltdown in Congress and has not answered the questions the way Donald Trump wanted her to answer the questions. She directly implicated Donald Trump in a lot of the decisions that were made, right? She's saying she had permission from him to do a lot of the things she was doing, right? So Trump wasn't happy with this performance. And on top of that, the person that she's accused of having an affair with was mentioned a lot right in front of Chrissy Noem's
when your
husband.
special blanket, your blankie, was left on one of the government jets and not transported over the new one, your special government employee, Corey Lewandowski, chivalrously stepped forward to fire the pilot midair, a 2003 Coast Guard Academy graduate and distinguished U.S. Coast Guard commander in Air Station, Washington, D.C. But then he had to be rehired immediately because there was no one else who could fly the two of you on the rest of the journey back.
Juicy, right? Juicy gossip, right? He was her employee, a special employee that was hired. In other words, he's a special employee. Maybe he doesn't have credentials. He's just working for her, assisting her with certain special tasks. He's flying with her from place to place, right? And the thing is that this thing had a big bet in it, right? He had a big bet in it. Okay. So, big juicy scoop on the big juicy affair that they were having, allegedly. Let me say it again. Allegedly, they were having a affair in the back of the plane that she bought for deportation flights and to make it easier to fly deportees. And then it was retrofitted with a bed, and it was like a executive huge plane. And then she spent $200 million advertising, and she was the center of every advertising every commercial. She made herself famous, and she wanted to be a movie actress. So she made these commercials, talk about she was gonna go after people, um, and it was all for her own personal gain, right? This is the problem when you put loyalists in, that just want to make a name known for them, right? They want a name, they want people to know them, and that's the problem, right? They're not there to serve the people. They're there to serve themselves and make themselves famous, right? And so she said that Donald Trump knew about the advertisements.
Back home. Then I heard about an airborne episode of entitlement, arrogance, and contempt that I could hardly believe. Apparently, when your special blanket, your blankie, was left on one of the government jets and not transported over to the new one, your special government employee, Corey Lewandowski, chivalrously stepped forward to fire the pilot midair. A 2000.
There's a scandal in the Labor Department, Department of Labor. There's a scandal in DHS. All these people are being put in that have been accused of corruption and all types of double dealing. Let's watch it again. Chrissy Nome was like attacked by a lot of people, right?
Jet, a $70 million luxury 737 MAX with a queen-size bedroom in the back,
You
a
heard
deluxe
that?
serving bar,
A queen-size
and 4
bed.
flat-screen TVs.
A serving
big,
bar.
beautiful jet paid
Wow.
for by the big, beautiful bill.
She could fly everywhere around the
Senate,
country.
you said you plan to refurbish this jet to make it into this kind of airplane.
She could
which
fly
is what's
anywhere in the
actually
country.
being used for deportations in order to.
So she could fly anywhere in the country. And she could fly anywhere in the country. She had it repurposed. She put a bed in there. She put a bar in there. She put a whole, like, she just made herself a personal bar in the sky, right? Where she could hang out with her alleged lover or alleged special employee, and she would enjoy her time, right? So, and she said it would save her money and time, right? This was a different time than, let's say, the past, right? The past, you wouldn't let government employees get away with this type of level of corruption and this level of, how can I say it nicely? I'll leave it at that, because there's a lot of investigations going to be happening and going on with Congress and with all these agencies now that she's not officially a government employee, or she's still a government employee, but she just being transferred to a special position. So let's talk about, double tap, like the show, double tap, like, share, comment, so I could broadcast your comment, and subscribe. Hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button, hit the like button. It'll help the algorithm, help the show get more viewers. This is what I enjoy. I enjoy speaking about politics, but I also want to hear from people. I especially want to hear from you, the viewers, as to what you want me to speak about, right? What you want me to speak about, right? You, the viewers, I want to hear from you. Okay, this is interesting. Let me see this. Like, I get alerts sometimes on my computer. So Let's hear the alert, the headline. Let's hear the headline, right? Let's hear the headline. Let me switch over. I'll keep going, but this is like when I see some breaking news, then I want to see that first, and then talk about it because it's also important too, right? To speak about the things that are happening, right? Okay, so four Democrats broke with the rest of their group uh, and voted to fund the Department of Homeland Security, even after all the scandals, right? Even after all the scandals.
The Secretary of State issued level 4 travel advisories dating.
So this is like the headlines.
There was many signs put out by the State Department, and I wish that everyone in this room would report on them. The Secretary of State issued level 4 travel advisories dating back to January for many of these countries in the region.
As they talk about being stranded, right?
Travel.
They were saying they were stranded, right? So these are just some issues. We're gonna talk about that one later. The ex-Marine. I didn't put it in the subjects, but that's definitely something we're gonna talk about later, right? We're definitely gonna talk about all these issues and all these things that are happening across the board. You know why? Because we have to talk about it. That's the best thing when we talk about it, when we speak about the issues. That's how the issues get changed, right? If we speak about it. We're in a different country than years ago, right? Right? We had maybe a lot of indecency in this country for many years, but we had a different world, right? This is what presidents would do when they got caught red-handed doing something wrong, right? Right? This is what presidents used to do when they got caught doing something they weren't supposed to be doing.
Let me just say this. And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes, but in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I can say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got. And so that's where the money came from. Let me just say this. I want to say this to the television audience.
He was really worried about what people thought and the scandal, and he ended up doing this.
I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body. But as president, I must put the interests of America first. America needs a full-time president and a full-time Congress, particularly at this time with problems we face at home and abroad. To continue to fight through the months ahead for my personal vindication would almost totally absorb the time and attention of both the President and the Congress in a period when our entire focus should be on the great issues of peace abroad and prosperity without inflation at home. Therefore, I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow. Vice President Ford will be sworn in as president at that hour in this office. As I recall the high hopes for America with which we began this second term, I feel a great sadness that I will not be here in this office working on your behalf to achieve those hopes in the next 2.5 years. But in turning over direction of the government to Vice President Ford, I know, as I told the nation when I nominated him for that office 10 months ago, that the leadership of America will be in good hands. I have never been a quitter. To leave office before my term is completed is abhorrent to every instinct in my body.
Right? That's what used to happen. And then there's another scandal, right? When presidents have been hit with scandals, they've been fast to react and try to make sure that the American people like what they're doing. And signs of unpopularity when they're everything was in the floor, their popularity, they try to get it up. They try to get their popularity up because that's what presidents do, right? But not this president. He doesn't really care.
This is one of the greatest political scandals that you've never heard of. What's known as the Iran-Contra affair took place in the early 1980s under the Reagan administration and involved both Iran and Nicaragua. Iran had just come out of its revolution and was now fighting a war against Iraq, while Nicaragua was in the middle of its revolution and had the communist Sandinistas pitted against the anti-communist Contras. As part of its larger policy in the Cold War, the U.S. government were funding the Contras in their fight against communism, but had now promised the American people that they would no longer do so. Secretly, however, they still wanted to fund the war and began illegally selling arms to Iran for their war and using those proceeds to now fund the Contras. When all this became exposed, it greatly hurt the Reagan administration's reputation, and the American people were now aware that their government was involved in everything from illegal arms trafficking to illegal drug trafficking, all in the name of fighting communism. This is one of the greatest political scandals that you've never heard of. What's known as the Iran-Contra affair took...
So this was a scandal, and did Ronald Reagan fess up to it? Thank you for watching, everyone. Thank you for watching. Like, share, follow the broadcast, and let's see some more about this the Iran-Contra scandal, right? And so this was under Ronald Reagan, right? Nixon had his scandal. Ronald Reagan had his scandal. They ended up, a lot of people ended up.
Ronald Reagan should have been impeached. Instead, 11 members of his administration were convicted. I'm talking about the Iran-Contra affair. In the 1980s, the Nicaraguan government was overthrown by a revolutionary force with some Marxist-Leninists among the ranks of this force. Obviously, Reagan didn't like this because, there's communists in South America. You got to get rid of them. So he did everything in his power to kind of fund the opposition to these Sandinistas, which is what the revolutionary force was called. The CIA widely distributed the Freedom Fighters Manual among the Nicaraguan citizens, which basically gave ways to rebel against government with, show up late to work or kill somebody by chopping a tree over in the middle of the road. I don't know. It was kind of crazy. Eventually, the Reagan administration just started funding and supplying the Contras, which Contra in Spanish means against. So they were like the counter-revolutionary fighters. Congress was not a big fan of, funding and supplying rebels in foreign nations. So they passed the Boland Amendment, which basically prohibited Reagan from sending any aid to the Contras for the effort of going against the Sandinista government. In 1986, the New York Times published a story that said that Reagan sold arms to Iran in exchange for the American hostages held in Iran to be released. Also, these hostages were surprisingly released very, very soon into Reagan's first term. and the Carter administration could not seem to get these hostages released. So some people speculate that Reagan somehow had to do with the fact that they got released so soon into his administration. Anyways, Reagan heard the news and he was like, no, I would never do that. That's so stupid. That's crazy. I would never do that. 3 weeks later, it was revealed that he was using this money from the arms sale to Iran to fund the Contras against the Sandinistas. The administration went around the Boland Amendment to sell arms to Iran, which was an enemy state, and then used the money from the sale of these arms to fund rebels in a foreign nation,
which is crazy, right? A huge scandal. But you notice that laws were broken and Congress acted appropriately and try to go after all the people that were breaking the laws, including the president, and cause a big scandal. But the Congress we have now just goes along with Trump and whatever he says.
In the slightest. This led to investigations of members of the Reagan administration, and when Reagan was pressured, he said mistakes were made. He denied any definite knowledge on this deal and was kind of like, I mean, maybe I did that. I don't really remember, though. 14 members of his administration were indicted and 11 were convicted. But Reagan got away with it. He was not convicted. He was not impeached or anything. So George H.W. Bush, who was Reagan's vice president, pardoned all 11 of the people that were convicted. So Reagan also did a lot of other horrible things that maybe I'll cover in another video, but I'm just not going to get into it right now. So anyways, thanks for watching. Follow for more. Ronald Reagan should have been impeached. Instead, 11 members of his administration were...
See that? It was scandals. Presidents have had scandals over and over, but it depends on if people want to hold them accountable, right? If people want to hold them accountable for the scandals and the things that they did, right? A little bit more Reagan. So for the younger people that don't know this, I mean, I was a kid when Reagan was like on TV. I didn't really understand what was happening. But
sir, if I may, the polls show that a lot of American people just simply don't believe you. But the one thing that you've had going for you more than anything else in your presidency, your credibility, has been severely damaged. Can you repair it? What does it mean for the rest of your presidency?
Well, I imagine I'm the only one around who wants to repair it, and I didn't have anything to do with this damaging it.
Sir, if I may, the polls show that a lot of American people just simply don't believe you. But the one thing that you've had going for you more than anything else in your presidency, your credibility, has been severely damaged. Can you repair it? What does it mean for the rest of your presidency?
Well, I imagine I'm the only one around who wants to repair it, and I didn't have anything to do with this damaging it.
Sir, if I may, the polls show that a lot of American people just simply don't believe you. But the one thing...
Yeah, so a lot of people didn't believe him, don't believe his credibility. But we all believe Donald Trump's credibility, right? We all believe Donald Trump's credibility. Is he credible? Let's hear some more people grilling Christine Noem, because I'm comparing it to Iran-Contra. I'm comparing it to other scandals in the past, Watergate, where there was a mistrust to the American people, where the American people were not told the truth, and the truth came out. And so now there's a whole bunch of scandals that even anger Republicans somewhat when they're questioning her. She didn't do things the way they wanted. I guess that's the lesson.
Work for? You or the president?
The president.
Okay. Why is that? Because I believe the president recognized that you weren't getting it done in Minneapolis, and you're putting us further away from pointing to this. We're beginning to get the American people to think that deporting people is wrong. It's the exact opposite. The way you're going about deporting them is wrong. The fact that you can't admit to a mistake, which looks like under investigation, is going to prove it.
So they're angry that she is not doing things the right way, making it look bad. And it's a good thing that she's doing, but it's bad the way she did it. That's the message they're trying to send people. Wow, crazy. But nonetheless, they're upset. They're screaming at her. I guess they heard from constituents. And now the second resolution was just voted down by Congress again. A second resolution, which was reworded, was just turned down by Congress right now.
Good. And Mr. Petty probably should not have been shot in the face and in the back. Law enforcement needs to learn from that. You don't protect them by not looking after the facts. Not only should the FBI be investigating it, but every single law enforcement agency in that jurisdiction should be invited to it. So our law enforcement officers do not have this pall cast upon them. One of the reasons why ICE officers are having threats, and damn the people that threaten ICE officers, because so many of them are doing a good job, is because you've cast a pall on them by acting like we should investigate things differently. Officer-involved shootings have a formula that we should go through every time.
This logic is nuts and it's crazy to me, but he just screaming at her, but the logic that he's displaying is like, okay, it's fine, but you should investigate it. But it's like they're not that disturbed by it, right? It's more about procedure for them. They're more upset that the procedure wasn't followed more than that what was the result of the procedure, right?
And we're not going through that formula. As a matter of fact, in Ms. Good's case, I think that they were even saying that maybe there wasn't even a need to do it in the DOJ. I hope that that's changed. But I'm telling you, it was a civil rights review. I saw your frown. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But originally, Blanche said there wouldn't be an investigation. Folks, law enforcement, we've got to have their back. We've got to make it clear when they make a mistake, then they get corrected for it. But you don't walk away from it, and you've done it too many times. Now, Secretary, I read your book last week. And honestly, some of the parts of it impressed me, but some of it distresses me. And I'll give you a good example of one that does. The passage where you talk about killing a dog that was 14 months old. I train dogs, all right? And you are a farmer. You should know better. You should know that if you're going out to a hunting lodge and you're putting...
They're giving her the business. The Republicans were even upset with her. Now you know why Donald Trump fired her. Some of the reasons, because she was doing things in a careless way, I guess, from the Republican side, making them look bad.
Pheasants out and you're putting dogs out. You don't take a puppy out there. A 14-month-old dog is basically a teenager in dog years. You decided to kill that dog because you had not invested the appropriate time in training, and then you have the audacity to go into a book and say it's a leadership lesson about tough choices. It's in your book. We could play it if we had time. At that same lunch hour, you killed a goat. And you killed the goat because you said it was behaving badly. You are a farmer. You don't castrate a goat. They behave badly. You should have probably done that before. But my point is, those are bad.
Yeah, okay. That's all you got? The best you got against her? Let's see some other senators questioning Christine Noem.
Miramar Martinez is with us today as well. She's standing right behind you.
Blumenthal from Connecticut.
To donate clothing at her church when she came across an unmarked car. The agents sideswiped her car. 3 masked agents in camouflage stormed out, and one of them pulled out his gun and fired at her moving vehicle, hitting her 5 times. She almost bled to death. Wouldn't you agree that shooting Miramar Martinez on her way to donate clothing at her church, a United States citizen from Chicago, is wrong?
Sir, I don't know the situation or the case. I'll look into it to ensure that all the
I'm
procedures
glad you'll
are
look
followed
into
properly.
it. Miramar, by the way, was falsely charged with impeding law enforcement.
She never heard of this case. It was all over the media. It was all over the news, and she claims she has never heard of it. This is the classic politician, bureaucrat claiming that they never heard of such a large case, right? Even though it's all over the news, and I'm sure they told her about it and they briefed her about it. If they didn't brief her about it, then they're not doing their job, letting her be aware of anything that happens in the area.
But the case actually fell apart. The judge dismissed it as being trumped up. He dismissed it with prejudice. And in fact, the agent who shot her, I'm not going to name him, but you know who he is, was quoted on social media the day or so afterward. And he said, quote, "I fired 5 rounds and she had 7 holes. Put that in your book, boys." And quote, "Cool, I'm up for another round of F around and find out."
Wow.
Will you join me in condemning that agent?
Sir, that situation, I don't know the details of, but I will look into that.
I don't.
She's gonna look into it, right? After all these months. After all these months.
I don't know why you can't join me in saying it was wrong to shoot Miramar, almost cause her death, and then brag about it. Wouldn't you agree with me that it was wrong?
Well, sir, the way that you have portrayed it, it appears to be, but let me look into the case so I can speak to the specifics of it.
In fact, apparently, contrary to what you just said, you actually supported the agent who shot Ms. Martinez 5 times. He's quoted as saying, when he was asked, everyone has been supportive, including Chief Bobino, Chief Banks, Secretary Noem, and El Jefe himself, referring presumably to President Trump. Is the agent who shot Ms. Martinez still on the job?
Sir, our law enforcement officers conduct operations every day according to procedures and to training and the experience that they have. When there is something that is not done
Ms.
properly,
Martinez still on the job carrying a gun?
I don't know the details. I will find out and get that information to you.
Wow.
Would you agree with me that he shouldn't be on the job
I
carrying
will
a gun?
look into this case and get back to you on the details. I'm
I
not
think
familiar
Americans
with it.
would find it absolutely terrifying that that agent is still on the job carrying a gun.
Wow. Hard to believe, right? Hard to believe. Some more questioning of her. They went hard on her, right?
Based on what you know today, Madam Secretary, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
Congressman, what happened in Minnesota in those 2 incidents was an absolute tragedy.
Were they domestic terrorists, as you said to the
My
country?
condolences to their families, because I know that their lives will never be the same after that happened.
Is that an apology for what you said?
We, in those incidents, offer as much information as we can from officers and agents on the ground in a chaotic scene that gets.
I'll repeat my question, reclaiming my time.
Repeat
Based
it.
on what you know today, Madam Secretary, based on what you know today, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
As you know, there's ongoing investigations that are being led by the
Oh, but you
FBI.
didn't wait for the investigation, did you? You didn't wait for the evidence. You proclaimed that they were domestic terrorists at the time. Why did you do that?
And you didn't wait to attack our law enforcement.
Why did you do that?
We're going into a dangerous situation.
Why did you call them
One thing I
domestic
would say
terrorists?
is our ICE officers and our HSI officers that day risked
Wow.
their lives to protect that scene. So evidence could be reclaimed. So it could be used in the investigation. Because those violent rioters that
So
were
you're
there
proud of the fact
would
that
have-
you called them domestic terrorists? Is that what
those
you're telling
individuals,
America?
HSI officers put their lives on the line to protect that scene, so evidence so we could have.
Yes, they do.
thorough
Yes, they
and
do. But you
accurate
told a lie about them. You said that they were domestic terrorists. Do you regret that?
I offer my condolences to those family, and again.
Based on what
we'll
you
tell
know
them that
today,
the
were Renee
chaotic
Good
scene
and
on the
Alex
ground,
Preddy domestic terrorists?
There's ongoing investigations, and so I
So
can't.
you still don't know. You think that's an open question?
I would think you would want there to still be investigations going into these situations.
Well, you stated the conclusion 2 hours after they were killed that they were domestic terrorists. I wanted to give you an opportunity to correct the record, not just for their family, but for everybody in America who believes in the truth.
You have a chance to apologize.
In every situation, as
She refused to apologize.
No, your acting ICE director, Todd Lyons, came before Congress. He said he had no knowledge whatsoever that Alex Preddy and Renee Good were domestic terrorists. None. This is your guy. He said that. He admitted that that was wrong. Why won't you admit it?
We'll tell you the investigation is still ongoing, and
So do you regret speaking before the investigation?
I would say that in those situations,
You regret that?
chaotic scene on the ground, we relay information to the American people that they're asking for. And as the things change, situations change.
People were asking you whether they were domestic
Word
terrorists?
Sally.
And you decided that they were before the investigation?
As we learn
Word
more,
Sally.
You don't want to say anything to their families?
Word Sally.
I said I condolences.
For what? How about an apology for what you said about their
Yeah.
loved ones?
My heart is with them, and we will continue to stand with them as they get a complete investigation into these situations.
All right. Based on what you know today, Madam Secretary, were Renee Good and Alex Preddy domestic terrorists?
So she refused to apologize to the families and say, hey, we need to look into it.
Secretary Noem,
Crazy.
do you know what the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution says?
Search and seizure processes.
Yep. What about it? What about search and
It
seizure?
guarantees the right to a lawful search and seizure.
It protects individuals against unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. And I ask you that because I've sent you 3 different letters going back to February of 2025, raising concerns that you are unlawfully detaining U.S. citizens in violation of the Fourth Amendment. It was not until yesterday afternoon, more than a year after I sent you my first letter, that I finally received a response from you stating that ICE has detained 18 U.S. citizens. I want to introduce you to just 4 of the U.S. citizens unlawfully detained by ICE who are not even included in the 18 individuals that you cite in your response to me. So let me ask each of the U.S. citizens in the audience who were detained. Raise your hand if you were not charged with any crime following your detention. Now raise your hand if any of you were not even asked to prove that you were U.S. citizens during your detention. Now please raise your hand if you were detained by ICE simply for legally protesting or monitoring ICE activity under your First Amendment rights. Secretary, these are not 4 isolated incidents. ProPublica's reporting puts the number at over 170 U.S. citizens detained in just the first 8 months of the administration, which doesn't even include Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota. DHS is supposed to be protecting our residents and upholding constitutional protections, but you've turned that on the head. You have actually turned the United States government against its own residents, and you've had multiple chances to take accountability, to apologize to these folks and others across the country, but you have failed to do it. Yours is a case of failed leadership, Secretary. You need to resign, be fired, or be impeached.
Yeah, the time of the
because
gentlelady.
you don't have the right to lead this
Time of the
agency.
gentlelady has
I yield back. Secretary Noem, do you know what the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution?
Wow. They went hard on her, and they just went hard on her. But they're saying that's not the clip that caused her to get fired, right? I'll show you the clip, the question that got her Trump upset at her, right? There's one questioning session that actually got her serious, that actually got her fired, right?
Kristi Noem has been fired, consistent with what we have demanded on behalf of the American people. But let me also make clear, a change in personnel is not sufficient. We need a change in policy. And that has to be bold, dramatic, transformational, and meaningful. Kristi Noem has been fired, consistent with what we have demanded on behalf of the American people. But let me also.
So, I mean, what do you think? Should Trump have kept Kristi Noem? she was very unpopular. Very unpopular. No matter how many commercials she made to soften up her image, a lot of people didn't like her, right? Because of the things like this, like the good case, the petty case, and the
This is a
Yale
picture
case.
of your agents detaining Liam in Minnesota. He's wearing a blue bunny hat. Let me ask you, did Liam commit a crime?
Liam was not detained. His father was, and his father abandoned him. And when they went to try to return Liam to his mother, she wouldn't come out of the house and get him either. So therefore, Liam's father chose to take Liam with him.
Now she knows this case,
I
right?
believe you're not telling the truth. School officials at the scene say there were people in the house saying they could take care of Liam, and a federal judge rejected the arguments that your agency made. The federal judge stated, in fact, that this incident originated in, quote, the ill-conceived and incompetently implemented government pursuit of daily deportation quotas, apparently even if it requires traumatizing children. And then he forced your agency to release Liam, fly him back all the way from detention center in Texas back to Minnesota, and release his father as well. This is a picture of your agents detaining Liam in Minnesota. He's wearing a blue bunny.
So now detaining is not taking away, the person's not free to go, so therefore they're detained. She's trying to use the word salad to say that he wasn't detained because he was free to go. I don't understand. Right? Too much drama, too many bad cases.
Tonight, embattled Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem confronted over allegations she's having a sexual relationship with former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, who serves as an unconfirmed special governmental employee.
Have you had sexual relations with Corey Lewandowski?
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked that we're going down and peddling tabloid garbage in this committee.
Noem offended by the question, but never directly answering it.
I really think you need to say the word no into the record so that you can clear that up.
I think the ridiculousness of this and the tabloids that you are quoting and referencing are insane. And this has been
So that's a no?
something that I've refuted
Is
for
that a no?
years, and I continue to do that.
Noem also forced to defend the department's $200 million ad campaign with the secretary as the star.
You budgeted an astonishing $220 million for media consultant contracts so you can star in self-promoting photo shoots and lavish ad campaigns.
The secretary also cornered on NBC News' reporting over her seeking approval for the purchase of a $70 million luxury jet with taxpayer funds. The DHS says the plane was intended to save taxpayer money.
Wouldn't it have been cheaper just to
$70 million.
buy a deportation plane in the first place?
Democrats accusing her of steering more than $140 million to a marketing company with a tie to her political apparatus, something Noem defended.
Was it all done correctly?
14 billion impressions from that
yeah,
marketing campaign.
sure.
It was money spent in this country and in 8 different countries that illegal migration was coming from.
Madam Secretary,
overwhelmingly effective.
we all
$49
understand the argument that you've
billion.
made.
And Ryan, it's busy there tonight on Capitol Hill. There is late news about a subpoena for Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Yeah, Pam Bondi was also indicted.
Committee has requested that Bondi appear for a deposition to answer questions about her department's release of the Epstein files. 5 Republicans joining 19 Democrats in voting for the subpoena. There's no word on when that deposition will happen. Tom.
Tonight,
So Noem is under pressure. Noem is in trouble, right? And this is the question that got her fired, right? That really got under Trump's skin, according to
You're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time, as I'm understanding.
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did.
Mhm. Yes.
You're testifying that President
The
Trump
president approved the
approved this ahead of
redirecting of
time.
funds.
Something I understand.
Remember, he was
We had conversations about making
impeached for
sure
the
that we
same
were
thing,
telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you. sorry to
redirecting
interrupt.
congressional
But
funds
the president approved ahead of
without
time you
authorization.
spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
You're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Something I understand.
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
You're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Something I understand.
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am. I'm asking you, sorry to interrupt, but the president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million.
So it's like what he was impeached for, right? In the past. And but thank God that one of the Republicans showed up to vote against the anti-war measure, right?
Senator McConnell, can you tell us how you voted on the war resolution? And also, sir, if this isn't the best place to do an interview, are there better locations where you'd feel more comfortable speaking with the press or the public? Because I know the public would love to hear a comment from you, sir. All right, thank you. You guys have a good day. Senator McConnell, can you tell us how you voted on the war resolution?
Is he gonna retire? Like, you see this? He gotta be wheeled in to be able to vote, and he hasn't spoken. And like, what's going on here? What's going on here? One more time, the leadership is in battle, but the Congress is not willing to stand up to Trump on everything, right? This is Marco Rubio. Donald Trump's leadership is falling apart, or they were never together. What's the issue?
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked a question.
No, were you the one that, because somebody asked me a question yesterday, did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that, you from that follow-up. And I said, no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks. That decision had been made. The president systematically made a decision to systematically destroy this terroristic capability that they had, and we carried that out. I was very clear in that answer. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces, and we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked a question.
No, were you the one that, because somebody asked me a question yesterday, did we go in because of Israel? And I said, you were asking me that, you from that follow-up. And I said, no. I told you this had to happen anyway. The president made a decision, and the decision he made was that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ballistic missile program, that Iran was not going to be allowed to hide behind its ability to conduct these attacks.
It's hard with video that now you could deny what was said, right? You can't deny it anymore. You can't say, I didn't know what was happening, right? I didn't know. I wasn't aware. I said one thing, and the next day I say something else. And so now the question is, what really happened, right? What really happened? What really happened? That's the question, right? So this is the problem that they're in, right? She just had a way with words, right? So, and the Iranians are like, we're not having talks with the United States because we try to have talks, and in response to having the talks, they tricked us and bombarded us. So we're not willing to agree to a ceasefire, right? Because it's a trap.
Right now, you're saying Iran does not want a ceasefire.
We are not asking for a ceasefire. And we don't see any reason why we should negotiate with the US when we negotiated with them twice, and every time they attacked us at the middle of negotiations. So there is no request for a ceasefire by us, and there is no request for the negotiation with the US from us. We have never sent any messages to them.
Right now, you're saying Iran does not want a ceasefire.
We are not asking for a ceasefire.
Because Trump said that they were begging.
We don't see any reason why we should negotiate with.
For negotiations, that they were begging for negotiations. So, and similar news, finally, the reporter that was attacking Zohran Mamdani of New York City, the mayor, he was attacking him on all types of vile comments, apologize. I mentioned this yesterday, but I want to play the mayor's words so you can hear it yourself, the reporting on it.
To be called a jihadist mayor, to be called a cockroach, it is difficult to hear.
A right-wing radio host says it was rage that led him to refer to Mayor Zohran Mamdani as a radical Islam cockroach.
I took out my rage in a tweet on Monday morning on the mayor.
In that same post, Sid Rosenberg of WABC Radio also referred to Mamdani as a jihadist, America-hating mayor.
This language is both painfully familiar to me as a Muslim New Yorker, but also as someone who was born in East Africa. And it is difficult to hear.
Not nice to call somebody a bug. I get it, but it had nothing to do with anybody's religion or faith or anything.
After pushback from Mayor Mamdani, from Governor Hochul, and from Sid Rosenberg's own boss,
personal attacks on individuals is not acceptable.
Rosenberg took down the post, but explained that he was furious when he wrote it with Mamdani's criticism of the military strikes in Iran.
Today's military strikes by the United States and Israel mark a catastrophic escalation in an illegal act of war, of aggression.
So to the mayor and anybody else that I offended with my tweet on Monday, I send out a heartfelt apology.
I think time will tell how sincere of an apology it is.
It's not the first time Rosenberg has said something along these lines. Remember these comments alongside former Governor Andrew Cuomo toward the end of the race for mayor, when the two suggested that Mamdani might support another terror attack in New York.
God forbid another 9/11. Can you imagine Mamdani in the seat?
Yeah, I could. He'd be cheering.
After that, Rosenberg posted a picture of a dinner he says he had with Mayor Mamdani's police commissioner, Jessica Tisch.
How do you feel about your police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, dining with right-wing radio host Sid Rosenberg last night?
I can tell you that of all the questions that I ask my police commissioner, who she had dinner with the night before is not one of them.
After Rosenberg's more recent comments, Tisch ultimately issued this statement calling Rosenberg's words wholly inappropriate and deeply harmful. And at a police ceremony soon after, the chemistry between Mamdani and Tish appeared, at least on the surface, to be warm.
To be called a jihadist mayor, to be called a cockroach,
He wasn't that upset as he should have been, right? And this is a Democrat, and at least he's taking a stance and he's speaking out against those things that are wrong in our society. And we don't need another war. It costs so much money. We could provide health care. We could provide food. We could provide shelter for people. We could do so much, right? Give people a decent wage, living wage. And this is John Fetterman, right?
John Fetterman has to be the dumbest motherfucker in the entire U.S. Congress. What are you doing, my guy? You are supposed to be part of the opposition party. You are supposed to say, no more endless wars. Instead, what does this guy do? He votes with Republicans to shut down a war powers resolution, basically saying, Daddy Trump, you can fucking bomb Iran for all I care. You can use all of my constituents' tax dollars towards bombs, endless war, ICE, you name it. John Fetterman's got his name signed on it. He's a disgrace. He should resign yesterday. What a joke. What an unserious politician John Fetterman is. He is embarrassing to even be an American alongside with. John Fetterman has to be the dumbest motherfucker in the entire U.S. Congress.
He's not
what are
very
you
smart.
doing, my guy? You are supposed.
He's voting with all types of stuff with the Republicans. I think he might be outed. He won't be there for long. And so the last topic I want to cover is the U.S. Marine that was dragged out of the hearing. He was dragged out of the hearing, right? He was dragged out of the hearing by...
Out. No one wants to fight for Israel.
His hand. Oh, his hand.
Sir.
Let go of your hand. Let go of the door.
Only go of the door. The senator broke his hand.
His hand was broken.
The U.S. senator just broke the hand of a Marine.
Oh, you heard the snap? You heard the snap, right?
A U.S. senator just broke the hand of a Marine. A U.S. senator just broke the hand of a Marine. You're a coward. What did you say? Senator? That's why you got kicked out.
Well, why did the senator have to get involved? They have enough police officers. Why did he have to get involved?
I'm getting out of here.
That's fine. Everybody sit down, please. Is your hand okay? Okay. No, it's not.
This is disgusting.
Wow. Was that troubling enough for you to say that we're living in some crazy times, right? We're living in some crazy times that a Marine, ex-Marine can fight back against the powers to be, letting people know that we don't need no more wars in America. We don't need no more wars. We've had too many wars in the United States. We had too many, and it's cost too much money, right? We've been in Palestine, helping in Ukraine, providing missiles and weapons. We've been pretty much in so many areas, so many places. And I think most Americans don't want more war. That's just a reality. We don't want no more war. And let me cook a little bit. Let me talk to you, the people, directly. But in reality, we don't want war. We don't want our kids in war. We don't want them being recruited for war, because we've seen how long Iraq lasted. How many years did Iraq last? Um, youth, years and years, and Afghanistan was supposed to be something easy and short. And guess what? It wasn't easy and it wasn't short, and it caused a lot of casualties. It cost a lot of U.S. casualties across the board, right? It cost too many casualties, more casualties than we really wanted or really want to accept as a country. We don't want this many people being unalive or not being with us anymore, right? So it's a lot of craziness, and I'm sorry we gotta deal with it, right? Unfortunately, we gotta deal with it. Let's see. There's some updates on the Iran war, according to CNN. There's some updates. Let's go over some of the updates. Um, Israel expands campaign. Israeli military chief said it's moving to the next phase of the war with Iran after carrying out 2,500 strikes with more than 6,000 weapons. We have additional surprises ahead, said Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Iyah Samir. So they've been preparing for a while, and I know that there was a big attack in uh, a big attack on Hezbollah that they launched. U.S. strategy. President Donald Trump said that U.S. military is far ahead of schedule in the war against Iran. Separately, he told Axios today he must be involved in selecting Iran's new leader. So he wants to be able to pick who the new leader is, and it's like he won't stop until he's able to pick who the new leader is. They pick a new leader, which is the son of the Ayatollah Khamenei, right? They picked a new leader. His son is going to be in charge, and he has supposedly the same mentality, the same thinking of his dad. A lot younger, more energetic, and more fearless, right? Um, and the House voted on failed to pass a measure that sought to curb Trump's authority to wage war in Iran without congressional approval, showcasing GOP loyalty to the White House. So Congress is loyal to the president. Congress is sticking with the president. I mean, the Democrats. No matter how unpopular war is, no matter how many casualties will be happening, they just pretty much say that they're gonna stick with him, right? And no matter what. And the war has been widening. That's very true. The war has been widening, right? Let's see.
Every time I look at
The war has been widening, right? The war has been getting bigger and bigger every day. It's allowing more and more countries are getting involved. Um, so more and more countries are getting sucked in. Spain and the United States are going back and forth. Um, the United States doesn't want the airspace to be used by these countries, right? And the United States says they could use um, the airspace, right? This So let's hear from Spain, which is pushing back. And Trump is saying, we don't care what you think. Right? He said, we don't care what you think.
Debemos aprender de la historia. Y no podemos jugar a la ruleta rusa con el destino de millones de personas. No es si estamos o no a favor de los ayatolás. Nadie lo está. Desde luego no lo está el pueblo español y por supuesto tampoco el gobierno de España. La pregunta, en cambio, es si estamos o no del lado de la legalidad internacional y, por tanto, de la paz. Lo que sí sabemos es que de ella no va a salir un orden internacional más justo. Ni tampoco va a salir de ella salarios más altos, ni mejores servicios públicos, ni un medio ambiente más saludable. Los gobiernos estamos aquí para mejorar la vida de la gente, para aportar soluciones a los problemas, no para empeorar la vida de la gente. Y es absolutamente inaceptable que aquellos dirigentes que son incapaces de cumplir con ese cometido usen el humo de la guerra para ocultar su fracaso y llenar de paso los bolsillos de unos pocos, los de siempre.
Wow. So he's saying that they're enriching the same pockets and it's smoking mirrors to cover up the failures of the administration's ability to help the people and to provide the services necessary for the people. So he went hard on Trump, right?
Debemos aprender de la historia.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy. And the rest of us must act consistently, defending now the same values that we defend when we talk about Ukraine, Gaza, Venezuela, or Greenland. Because the question is not whether or not we are in favor of the Ayatollahs. No one is. Certainly not the Spanish people, and of course not the Spanish government either. The question, rather, is whether or not we are on the side of international law, and therefore of peace.
Debemos aprender de la historia.
We must learn from history and cannot play Russian roulette with the fate of millions of people. The powers involved in this conflict must immediately cease hostilities and commit to dialogue and diplomacy. And the rest of us must act consistently, defending now the same values that we defend when we talk about Ukraine, Gaza, Venezuela, or Greenland. Because the question is not whether or not we are.
So Donald Trump's response was angry, right? Donald Trump's response was angry, right?
And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases, and that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it, but we don't have to. But they were unfriendly, and so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain. We don't want anything to do with Spain.
Debemos aprender.
So they're saying Trump is saying that he's going to cut off all trade with Spain because Spain is not cooperating, not willing to allow the bases that are in the country and the airspace to be taken over by America, so they'll be able to refuel and attack Iran and any other countries.
Spain has been terrible. In fact, I told Scott to cut off all dealings with Spain. Spain, first of all, it started when every European nation, at my request, paid 5%, which they should be doing. And everybody was enthusiastic about it, Germany, everybody. And Spain didn't do it. And now Spain actually said that we can't use their bases. And that's all right. We could use their base if we want. We could just fly in and use it. Nobody's going to tell us not to use it. But we don't have to. But they were unfriendly. And so I told him we don't want to. Spain has absolutely nothing that we need other than great people. They have great people, but they don't have great leadership. And as you know, they were the only country that in NATO would not agree to go up to 5%. I don't think they would have agreed to go up to anything. They wanted to keep it at 2%, and they don't pay the 2%. So we're going to cut off all trade with Spain.
So Spain, Cuba. There's a lot of countries that Trump is threatening right now that they'll be next if they don't do whatever the United States wants. Yesterday was Ecuador, right? They sent forces into Ecuador. It's just too much for people. It's hard to keep track of all these conflicts happening all across the country, all across the nation. Too many conflicts, not enough diplomacy. Whatever happened to diplomacy? Does diplomacy work, or is diplomacy real, or we don't really care about diplomacy now? We forgot about diplomacy. We forgot about what we need to do in the country because we forgot that we had allies and we had European allies. Now Trump is saying that any country that's part of NATO, the United States can use the air bases and not have to tell those countries that they're going to use the air bases. So another report says the Iranian bombers came within 2 minutes of striking the largest U.S. base in the Middle East before Qatari Air Force shot aircraft down. So they were only 2 minutes away. And if the Qatari would have not showed up, they would have gotten a lot of casualties in one of our Middle Eastern bases. And so it's getting ugly. It's getting very ugly. It's getting out of control, the Middle East. And also at home, there's a lot of turmoil, right? Right? And so there's a lot going on, a lot to cover. And they're saying that the next phase is starting, right? The next phase is starting. Right? Let's hear what the BBC has to say about what's happening. There's going to be a new surge of Israel. Israel's going to do they said there's going to be a new pounding.
I apologize in advance, but was there a world at the weekend where people were considering an Iranian response that wasn't as dramatic as this? And so actually you wouldn't have to think about sending more British fighter jets or a British ship to Cyprus because actually Iran wouldn't have counterattacked so strongly in so many places.
But actually, Iran made it clear before the war, and it made it clear last June when the original Israeli and American strikes hit the nuclear bunkers and the nuclear facilities in Iran. They made it clear then by hitting a US base in the aftermath, and they made it clear this time that it was fair game, that US bases in neighboring countries were fair game. They made that very clear. But I think that probably nobody quite realized the extent to which they would retaliate, the number of countries that would be involved. I mean, today even we've been told there were strikes on Azerbaijan. There was a report yesterday of a missile heading towards NATO, towards Turkey, a NATO member. And I think none of this was envisaged, that there would be so many countries, some 10 of them involved, and so many drone and missile attacks.
Right, Mikey, let's go back to what you were saying a couple of minutes ago. So you talked about these Shahed drones, which are the Iranian-produced drones, but have also been used by Russia. But you said it's a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, the Iranians gave the Shahed 136 blueprint to the Russians, and the Russians are now mass producing on a serious scale the same sort of design. It's called the Geran 2. And just to give you an idea of just how many they're producing, in 2025, Russia launched over 60,000 Shaheds on Ukraine. 60,000. The higher estimates of Iran in terms of their capability and what they've got, the higher estimates are around 80,000 Shahed 136s. I would put those lower, but still significant. So what this all comes back to is something called cost-benefit ratio. The Sea Viper, the air defense system on the Type 45, those missiles, the Asters, cost $1 to $2 million.
Right.
An ASRAAM, which is an advanced short-range air-to-air missile that is currently strapped to a Typhoon, it's operating on what's called Drone CAP, Drone Combat Air Patrol, out of RAF Akrotiri. That's a £300,000 per unit missile. One of these drones costs $35,000 to $50,000. And so the Iran strategy is quite simply bankrupt the West in terms of the cost it takes to develop these counter-drone technologies and deplete their stockpiles as quickly as possible. Because when you look at the swarming potential of the Shaheds coming from Iran.
In other words, loads and loads going over at the same time.
Heaps. It's not a sophisticated piece of equipment. You know, it's got almost like a 125 two-stroke engine. It's got a 20 to 60 kilogram warhead, and it's made out of carbon fiber. Therefore, because it's so simple, it can be mass-produced at scale.
And it's frightening. I mean, I'm talking about people who are on the ground looking up at these things in these various countries. They're terrified.
Yeah.
And also, when you talk about the cost ratio, I suppose you can't just look at the cost of using one weapon to intercept another and working out whether it's a good value for money. You've got to look at the potential costs of the damage done by the drone.
So it's getting crazy, right? It's just getting crazy, the cost. And this is something that Trump didn't calculate. This is something that his whole cabinet didn't calculate. This is something that the U.S. senators and congressional people have been assured that it's not going to be a long war, that it's going to take only a month. But how you think it's going to take a month? It's already been a few days, and it hasn't stopped, right? It hasn't stopped. And the intensity of the strikes have gotten worse. The intensity has gotten a lot worse than what people expected it to be, right? People didn't expect this to be a long, drawn-out war, right? They thought that Iran was bankrupt and that Iran doesn't have much money, right? That's the assumption. That Iran is pretty much bankrupt. It doesn't have as much money as it used to have. That all the sanctions that affected them economically. But this might be reviving the defense industry's pocketbooks, because Trump even said that he's upset at defense contractors that are not right. So this was the Shah of Iran in 1976.
Many people, almost all the countries in the world, exactly like the sympathy that the Jews had when they were searching for a home.
Right.
But our good Palestinian friends must know that there is only a limit to where they can go and bully the world.
Bully the world?
Yes, by terrorism and blackmailing and this and that.
You know perfectly well, Your Majesty, that the leaders of the Arab world find the Palestinians as much a problem almost as the Israelis do. Isn't that a fact?
What I can say is that they should really open their eyes, and if there is a hierarchy and someone there in command
of the Palestinians, you mean?
Of the Palestinians, to start a new policy, because the actual one is going to lead them nowhere. The Palestinians, obviously.
So it's just the things that are happening, right? The things that are happening are crazy. And So there's a lot of choking and a lot of economic strife. There's a lot of problems. Are we going to be able to overcome the shock of the economy, right? Are we going to be able to withstand the shock, right, of the economy? That's my question, right? Let me look something up. So this is the stock market today. Dow drops 1.6%. Oil prices above $80 a barrel. And I've heard people already complaining about the price of electricity and gas. And I myself have gotten a huge electric bill, a huge gas bill recently. It shot up like crazy. So imagine the inflationary pressures of energy bringing up the prices of a lot of things. And it's March. So the gas prices are going to increase because usually when the warmer months, there's additives added to the gas. And there's a big issue that people are not talking about, right? People are not talking about the whole shock to the economy that we weren't expecting, right? No one's talking about the shock to the economy of these prices, right? This is what caused Jimmy Carter his presidency, right? They say the oil prices shooting up, lines because of gas shortages. There was lines in the gas stations to be able to get gas, and then you paid a lot more for gas, right? So this, if I don't know if you know, but this is what caused that. It's attributed to Jimmy Carter not being reelected as president was the gas prices. Do you realize that? Let's see. Let's see. Let me show you. Jimmy Carter, right?
Problem. It's clear that the true problems of our nation are much deeper than gasoline lines or energy shortages, deeper even than inflation or recession. And I realize more than ever that as president, I need your help. Let me quote a few of the typical comments that I wrote down. This from a Southern governor. Mr. President, you're not leading this nation. You're just managing the government. You don't see the people enough anymore. Some of your cabinet members don't seem loyal.
See? This was Jimmy Carter. Right? Jimmy Carter. Talk about the gas prices.
Well, I could have been reelected if I had taken military action against Iran, but it's shown that I was strong and resolute and manly and so forth. But I think if I could have wiped Iran off the map with the weapons that we had. But in the process, a lot of innocent people would have been killed, probably including hostages. And so I stood up against all that advice. And then eventually my prayers were answered and every hostage came home safe and free. And so I think I made the right decision in retrospect, but it was not easy at the time. Well, I could have been reelected if I had taken military action against Iran, but it's shown that I was strong and resolute and manly and so forth. But I think if I could have wiped Iran off the map with the weapons that we had. But in the process, a lot of innocent people would have been killed, probably including hostages. And so I stood up against all that advice. And then eventually my prayers were answered and every hostage came home safe and free. And so I think I made the right decision.
You heard what Jimmy
Carter. Not easy at the time.
You heard Jimmy Carter's point of view, what he had to say in retrospect as to why he didn't invade Iran, right?
Americans don't want to know, and many Israelis don't want to know what is going on inside Palestine. It's a terrible human rights persecution that far transcends what any outsider would imagine. And there are powerful political forces in America that prevents any objective analysis of the problem in the Holy Land. I think it's accurate to say that not a single member of Congress with whom I'm familiar would possibly speak out and call for Israel to withdraw to their legal boundaries or to publicize the plight of the Palestinians. And that is added onto by the very effective work of the American-Israeli group called AIPAC, which is performing its completely legitimate task of convincing Americans to support the policies of the Israeli government. And AIPAC is not dedicated to peace. They're dedicated to inducing the maximum support in America, in the White House, in the Congress, and in the public media. Americans don't want to know. And many Israelis don't want to know.
Follow the money. That's what Carter says. Follow the money, and you'll find out exactly what's going on, right? Just follow the money. That's all you have to do, right? Do people want to follow the money? That's the question. Are people willing to follow the money? But thank you for joining me, and I hope that there will be peace on earth. That's my goal, that there always be peace on earth, that we don't put a war against each other, that we don't fight each other, and that there be relative peace on earth, because we're at each other's throats, we're attacking each other, we're causing chaos in the world, and a lot of people are not liking America or Americans right now, especially all the people stranded in all these countries that can't get a flight out. And what's going to happen? What's going to happen? We don't know. Tomorrow is going to be a different day, another saga, another path. We need explanations. And most people, that's the problem. They're demanding explanations. They're not getting very much any explanation, right? And so the Congress, how long can Congress hold out and allow Donald Trump to keep gaslighting them, changing the story, saying that the missions will end. And you heard that the United States is going to arm Kurdish forces in Iraq with small weapons to try to be the boots on the ground, right? For the United States, paying them to be the boots on the ground. So I don't know how much longer can we just keep shooting bombs at this country, and each bomb is like several $1 million. So it's several $1 million, right? It's a lot of money. And so even though the most conservative people are even turning on Trump, right? The most conservative people are turning on Trump. But Congress is still not turning on him, right? Let's see. Let's see. Are they actually turning on him? Some people apparently one person that is apparently turning on Donald Trump is Tucker Carlson, right? Tucker Carlson is saying that Trump is wrong on Iran, right? That's one person that's turning on Trump, but they're saying that he was turning for a while, right? So one of the only people that's turning on Trump is Tucker Carlson. Not that many people are turning on him. So let me hear what he has to say. I want to hear what Tucker Carlson has to say about let me hear what Tucker Carlson has to say about not my favorite guy. I'm not a fan.
This is only 36 hours in, and because you don't want to make things sound worse than they really are, we could go through all the many, many risks, some of which are becoming even clearer than they were. Don't want to go through them all. But clearly, the United States is not going to benefit from staying longer in Iran. And sorry, Tom Cotton, putting troops on the ground, boots on the ground, whatever you call it, committing young American men to go die in Iran is not in our interest at all. And it would cause not simply heartbreak in the families of those killed, but it would cause potentially real turmoil here domestically and render already fragile social fabric. So where do you go from here? Well, get out right away. It's just that simple. Of course, it's also incredibly complicated. But the first step is deciding that we're leaving. No, it's only been less than 2 days, but it's pretty clear that we're not going to gain anything more. And how do we know that? Because no one has explained what we're there to gain. No one has described the mission. Ask anybody, what's the point of it? How do we know we've won? And some of us spent 20 years asking, what are we doing in Afghanistan? Shut up. Are you pro-Taliban? No. But I would like to know when we've won. Sorry, you can't know that. It's classified. Okay. But now is...
So they're saying it's classified. We're not allowed to know what we're doing there. And so Tucker Carlson says, just get out. Let's just get out. We shouldn't even be in Iran. We should just get out as soon as we can. The more casualties there are, the more angry people are going to get at this war.
The time to be totally honest, we're not going to get anything more than we've already gotten, assuming we've gotten anything by staying. And the longer we stay, the greater the risk. What are the risks? Oh, well, here are just two that you should be paying attention to. One is that Israel gets really hurt. And in case you think this is a long video attacking Israel for Nazi reasons or anti-Semitic reasons, it's not. It's merely an effort to try and think through what's good for the United States. But also, as someone who wishes Israel no harm, to think through clearly what's going to be terrible for Israel. And one thing that would be terrible for Israel is getting hit with a hypersonic missile, which, as of right now, Iran has not yet fired. And they may never. But let's say they did. What would Israel, which is a country the size of Maryland, how would it respond? How could it respond? Well, it might respond with nuclear weapons, which it has, and which it has threatened to use before, and which it has implied it might use many times. One of the reasons that you can't let Israel go alone is they imply like, hey, don't make us go crazy and do something wild. And that would include the...
Yeah, I forgot about that factor, that Israel does have nuclear weapons. Just makes it a lot more complicated, a lot more crazy, right? That one side has nuclear weapons, the United States has nuclear weapons. Would they use it? I don't know. But it complicates things.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, God forbid, but it could. And if Israel was legitimately threatened, not performatively threatened, but actually threatened, like with a hypersonic missile into downtown Jerusalem.
And he's basically saying that Iran has hypersonic missiles that are very powerful, but they haven't deployed them yet. So
then
but he gives apologies saying, I don't want to offend Israel. I'm not trying to criticize Israel. I'm not trying to say Israel's wrong, but it might be costly for Israel. That's his argument.
It might. And in that case, who knows? Because nuclear weapons have not been used since August of 1945, but a number of countries have them, including Pakistan and possibly others. And so it could get there. And you'd hate to be in a spot where you were relying once again, as we did in June, on Iranian restraint.
And you know that Pakistan and Afghanistan are at war right now also. They've been fighting with each other now, full-scale war. So let's see. Just want to hear a different perspective. Not that I agree with him.
Relying on the Iranians to, call your air base in Qatar before hitting it and giving you a warning. You hate to say that, but if you find yourself in a place where you're relying on the restraint of a country you have described as morally diseased, a terrorist nation, a Nazi country, as they're telling you on Fox, if you're relying on their reasonable behavior, you may have exposed yourself a little bit.
Work today is broken. Every day, people juggle so many different tools just to get work done.
He's attacking Fox, right?
So if this continues, you could see potentially things going really crazy. And of course, the craziest of all would be a nuclear exchange. And that could happen. That's not off the table. Ask anybody who's dealing with this or thinking about it. Doesn't mean it's going to. Again, God forbid, but it could. And the possibility, even then it could, is terrifying. That's number one. Number two is Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, which was apparently built on the site of the Second Temple. If you've been to Jerusalem, big gold dome, a whole complex, and that is one of the holiest sites in Islam. Not an expert on Islam, despite many accusations, but it is. It appears to be co-equal in Islam, from what I can tell, with Mecca and Medina. It's a huge deal. And since 1967, it's been under the military control of Israel. It's actually controlled.
Wasn't he kicked out of Israel? He went there and they arrested him and they kicked him out. They because of his comment
legally by Jordan, but it's a holy place for every Muslim, about 2 billion of them. And there are people, Orthodox Jews in Israel, not all, some, and some evangelical Christians in Texas, not all, but some, who would like to see it blown up and replaced by this third temple. And I'm not going to get into the theology of it, which is deranged and demonic, actually. But it's a fact that people want this. And that is the beginning of really of the end for the world as we know it, because that would set off looking for religious conflict. Killing the Ayatollah didn't get you there. Okay, blow up the mosque, and then you will be there. And that's not good for anyone. It's certainly not good for the United States. And if this continues, there are already people in Israel, at least one well-known rabbi is calling for a false flag against that mosque. Just blow it up and blame the Iranians. And the truth is, whether the Iranians blow it up intentionally or unlikely, but let's just say, or by mistake, or there's a false flag by Israel, it blames Iran, it doesn't matter. If it blows up, that's not a solvable problem. That's the end of everything that we know. And that's an enduring, generational, 1,000 years, as long as the world lasts, religious conflict that no one wants to be a part of. Only the craziest, darkest people want any part of that at all.
But
that's the opposite of what we want. And that could happen. So the point is, once things start getting crazy, they can.
So he doesn't criticize Trump, doesn't say nothing wrong against Trump. He's just saying that we should just get out. But he refuses to criticize Trump. He knows the consequences of speaking about Trump or saying anything negative about Trump is extreme cancellation.
And potentially, indeed, they tend to get really crazy. And so stop the craziness. So how would we affect that to the extent that we can at this point? Declare victory and go home. Or pull back. It's hard to negotiate with the Iranians. They've turned down our offer 3 times. Yeah, true. Iran has decided, to the extent they decide anything, who knows who's actually making the decisions, clearly they're being made by compartments, or it seems that way. But to the extent that the Iranian government can respond as a cohesive whole, they have responded, no, we're not negotiating with you. Okay, so you can't negotiate with them. We're stopping. Defensive measures only, we don't want this. The global economy is at stake. The global order is at stake. American lives are at stake. American prestige is certainly on the line. Our ability to control anything beyond our borders or maybe even within them, we're out. We killed the Ayatollah. We came. We did it. We're going home. At this point, that would be a wise decision. And it was very clear from the outset, whatever
the U.S. is not back.
Revisionism people want to add to the story, but it was very clear that Donald Trump did not want an extended war in Iran, certainly didn't want a protracted boots on the ground war, certainly doesn't want the kind of war that Tom Cotton wants, obviously. And we are on the way to getting that really quickly into a lot of suffering. So declare victory, get out. That would be move 1.
So Tucker Carlson went in, basically going in, right? Tucker Carlson went in on Trump not wanting to get out, and a lot of people don't like him because he helped elect Trump, right? He's one of the people, the social media influencers that helped Donald Trump get elected by promoting him, by interviewing him in the in the old days when Trump first ran for office. He was promoting him. He was encouraging people to vote for him. He was encouraging people to give him a chance. And people actually gave him a chance. Right? So let me hear a little bit more what Tucker Carlson has to say, which is a guy that I can't stand because of his right-wing views and helping Trump get elected. But let's listen to what he has to say.
History, the first four questions you have to ask are these. 1, why did this happen? 2, what was the point of it? 3, where does it go from here? And 4, how do we respond? So let's assess the war in Iran, now ongoing in its second day, and try to answer those 4 questions. First, why did this happen? Now, in this case, there's a really simple answer. This happened because Israel wanted it to happen. This is Israel's war. This is not the United States' war. This war is not being waged on behalf of American national security objectives to make the United States safer or rich.
Is this where Marco Rubio got his talking points and then got in trouble with Trump for saying this?
Sure, this war is not actually even about weapons of mass destruction, nukes, chem bio. No, this war is waged purely because Israel wanted it to be waged. Now, why say that out loud this early in the conflict? Isn't that dispiriting for, say, American troops fighting this war? Yes, it is. And we thought a lot about whether it was wise or decent even to say something like that out loud, and have decided that it is for the following reason. First, because the truth is always the only basis for wise decision-making. When you lie to yourself or you lie to your people, you not only commit, well, a kind of moral crime by lying, but you also tend to hurt yourself. Hubris is the product of lies, for example. You can get way over your skis if you're not honest with yourself and the people around you about what's happening and why it's happening. But long-term, that is also true. In other words, it's important to say why this war is.
Why this war is happening. It's, it's happening, right? The war is happening. And so those are the 4 questions he says, ask yourself. Tucker Carlson. He's being a little tame, right? He's not all out criticizing Trump. He's more like low-key attacking him, right? Low-key attacking Trump. He's not really calling him out like that. I don't think any conservatives are like calling him out, straight up calling him out. They just like low-key calling him out, right? They're not like doing a big calling out of him, right? And they should, but the way Congress is lopsided, they voted to allow him to go to war. No, but they feel like they don't have to weigh in. And the American people, I think, are going to demand that they weigh in, right? And determine if it's necessary.
Happening because 50 years from now, people may not know. Your grandkids may learn that this war started because the Ayatollah showed up in Miami and started machine gunning people in a shopping mall, and so we responded. There was a kind of Iranian Pearl Harbor. You don't know what the future will believe about the present. You don't know how history will be written. And if you're skeptical of that, if you're asking yourself, well, how could historians, popular historians, how could future culture so misunderstand something so big? How could people lie about something so obvious, so giant? Well, history is your guide. A lot of the big events we think we understand, including wars from the past and not so distant past, are completely distorted in our memories. In other words, that's not.
So this is a blatant lie. That's what you're trying to say, Tucker Carlson? This is a blatant lie because of Donald Trump? Is he blatantly lying? That's what you're trying to say?
Actually, what happened at all. And the truth is, if enough people lie about something at a high enough volume, and they do it for long enough, loudly enough, while threatening anyone who refuses to lie about it, over time, their lies become conventional wisdom. Everyone believes them. There is something about repeating a lie over and over and over again that's almost like a spell or an incantation. It's almost a form of witchcraft. It assumes.
So, thank you, Tucker Carlson. Not thank you, right? Tucker Carlson, everyone. Right? Everyone's favorite figure in the progressive left wing. Right? Who likes Tucker Carlson? I don't know how many people I know that like him as a person, right? Do me a favor, double tap the screen, like the live, share the live. So according to this, according to Councilman member Vicky Palladino, she says it's totally normal for New Yorkers to hold a vigil and iftar in honor of the Ayatollah Khomeini in Washington Square Park. This is all totally normal and healthy and fine. And if you disagree, it's Islamophobia. So is that true? So bizarre. So Donald Trump has said in an actual interview, Donald Trump states he must be personally involved in selecting Iran's next supreme leader. So he's going to get involved in religion, in another country's religion and religious leader, and pick the next religious leader. That doesn't make sense. I think he didn't think this out very much. Donald Trump stated he must be personally involved in selecting Iran's next supreme leader after Ayatollah Ali Khamenei death. In an actual interview, U.S. President Donald Trump said he needs to be involved in appointing Iran's next leader following the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Describing Khamenei's son, Mojtaba, as a lightweight and unacceptable, Trump compared the situation to a U.S. involvement in Venezuela after Nicolas Maduro's capture and insisted on a leader who will bring harmony and peace to Iran. The remarks were made amid ongoing U.S. and Israel conflict, right? Bizarre, right? Bizarre that this is happening. So they're saying that basically Israel wants to be able to pick the leader, right? This is the Axios report that says that. Exclusive, Trump says he must be involved in picking Iran's next leader. This is the first or what, people? Thank you for joining me on the live. Like the live, share the live. Give me as much feedback as possible. If you hate it, put it in the comments. If you like it, put it in the comments. If you think you're going to enjoy it, put it in the comments. But like, share, and also subscribe. Hit the like and subscribe button. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me. And let's see what the world holds for tomorrow. But thank you for joining me, and I appreciate you being on this live stream with me. Have a good night, and I really do hope that things get better and there's more clarity, more moral clarity. We don't understand what's happening, why it's happening, and that's the biggest issue that a lot of people have, is that we're in the dark. We don't know anything. We just know that there's a big event happening. Bombs are being dropped like crazy. The Republicans refuse to call it a war. They call it a mission. They calling it different names, but they refuse to call it a war. They say it's not a war because they're using different names for it. A mission, a combat mission, a different names other than war. They say it's not a war. What do you think, people? Do you think it's a war that's happening right now in Iran, and a war in our own streets, where people are trying to survive with the inflation and the gas prices shooting up so much? What is it, everyone? What kind of war is this? Thank you for joining me, and have a good night. All right, everyone? Peace out. Toodaloo, and peace out.